Deep inside the industrial district, where no map dares to mark, there is a building the city forgot to tear down. Its iron gates are rusted shut. Its smokestacks have been cold for 100 years. But the gears are still turning. I first heard about this place from a crumbling journal I found in a demolition site. Handwritten notes from an engineer who vanished the same week the factory sealed itself. The last page read only this: "Do not let the pendulums stop. They are keeping something asleep." I should have stopped there. The outer wall had partially collapsed. I squeezed through the rubble into a world completely frozen in time. Massive iron gears, taller than houses, locked in a permanent half-turn. Copper pipes wrapped in rust like sleeping snakes. Skylights shattered, letting in shafts of cold gray light that cut through the permanent dust cloud hanging in the air. Every step echoed too loudly. This place had been waiting for footsteps. At the center of the factory floor, suspended on a platform by corroded chains, were 6 metallic spheres. Not factory equipment, not mechanical parts. They were ancient, carved with symbols no machine could produce. Each one pulsing with a faint heartbeat I could feel in my chest when I got close enough. I reached for the nearest one. The chains holding the platform groaned. A single gear shifted deep inside the walls, and something behind me exhaled. I ran. I ran until I found a maintenance exit and broke through into the cold night air. All 6 spheres clutched against my chest. Behind me, the factory's main smokestack shuddered. A sound like 1,000 clockwork mechanisms reversing all at once echoed across the empty street. Then silence. I didn't look back. Back in my apartment, I placed all 6 spheres on the heavy oak workbench under my lamp. Up close, each one was completely different. The first was scorched black with a hairline crack leaking ember orange light. The smell of ash clung to it. The second was damp. Actual water beaded along the surface as if it had never fully dried from some ancient ocean. The third vibrated slightly. A low electric hum I could feel in my teeth. The fourth was almost invisible. Dark, matte surface, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. The only thing that marked it was a faint green flicker from somewhere deep inside. The fifth was the heaviest. Dense metal, warm to the touch, radiating something that felt less like heat and more like emotion. A pressure in the sternum, like the feeling before you cry. And the sixth had no glow, no warmth, no vibration. Just a low subsonic pulse that made the other 5 tremble slightly whenever it moved. I left them on the bench and fell asleep in the chair. The fire sphere went first. It rolled toward the small gas heater in the corner. When the 2 heat sources met, the sphere ignited, not like it was burning, but like it was breathing for the first time. The metal shell split open with a clean crack. A tiny Charmander crawled out, tail flame blazing amber gold. It looked up at me with enormous, cautious eyes. Then it sneezed a small fireball at the curtain. I spent the next 10 minutes putting out the curtain.
No, not the curtains!
The wet sphere solved its own problem. It slid off the bench and landed directly in my kitchen sink.
Almost got it, just a
The
bit
tap,
more.
badly fitted and always dripping, finally let loose. Water flooding the basin. From inside the miniature flood, a Totodile burst upward with a shriek of pure joy, launched itself completely out of the sink, and immediately ran across the kitchen counter, knocking over everything in its path. The electric sphere rolled across the wool rug. The static buildup was enough. A crack of energy split the surface, and Jolteon erupted in a burst of blinding yellow sparks, every needle quill standing rigid, eyes wide and absolutely feral with electricity. It stood completely motionless for 4 full seconds. Then it sprinted directly into the wall, bounced off, sprinted into the other wall. It took 40 minutes to calm down. The dark sphere waited. I noticed it had slowly rolled into the corner behind the bookshelf, into the deepest shadow in the room. I almost left it alone. But then I saw the faint green pulse had gotten stronger, almost like a lighthouse signal. I reached into the dark, and when my hand closed around the sphere, it shattered like glass. Phantom drifted up from the shadow. A tiny ghost child wrapped in a hollow tree stump, eyes glowing the palest green. It didn't move toward me. It just hovered there, watching, like it was deciding whether to trust this world yet. The heavy sphere The emotional one required something I didn't expect. I'd been sitting on the floor, watching the chaos of the others, exhausted and overwhelmed, when Charmander came and pressed its small, warm head against my knee. That gesture cracked something open in me. The heavy sphere sitting by my side suddenly blazed with blue-white light. Lucario stepped out fully grown. Not small, not juvenile. It stood tall, eyes locked on mine, reading something in my expression that I couldn't even name. It placed one steel-clad paw very gently on my shoulder. Then it looked at the others with absolute calm authority, and something in the room settled. The sixth sphere did nothing. No reaction to fire, no reaction to water, no static, no shadow, no emotion. It simply sat there, pulsing its low subsonic frequency, and waited. I placed it carefully in the center of the room and left it alone. The next 2 weeks were the strangest, most alive I have ever felt. Charmander claimed the kitchen permanently. It slept curled around the base of the stove, and I learned to step over it every morning without breaking the ritual. Totodile treated every body of water in the apartment as its personal domain. The sink, the bathtub, the glass of water on my nightstand. I stopped arguing. Jolteon settled into a rhythm. Full-speed sprinting circuit of the apartment every morning at exactly 6 a.m. Then absolute stillness for 2 hours, then sprinting again. It kept the building's power flickering, but it never actually broke anything. It seemed to understand exactly how much was too much. Phantom was harder to find. It existed in the spaces I couldn't see, a glow behind the wardrobe, a flutter at the edge of the hallway. But slowly, night by night, it moved closer. First to the doorway, then to the foot of my bed. On the 8th night, it hovered directly beside my lamp. On the 9th night, I woke up and it was holding the lamp cord in its tiny branch arms, keeping the light from going out while I slept. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Lucario spent its days near the 6th sphere. Not guarding it. Something else. It would sit cross-legged in front of it for hours, eyes half closed, as if listening to a frequency no one else could hear. Occasionally, it looked up at me with an expression I can only describe as patient concern. I thought I had found something permanent. I thought wrong. It started with the clocks. Every clock in the apartment, the wall clock, my watch, the microwave display, all stopped simultaneously at 3:17 a.m. Lucario was already standing. The temperature dropped before anything visible happened. I could see my breath. The windows fogged from the inside. Then the darkness came through the wall. Not a shadow. Not a creature squeezing through a gap. Darkrai phased through the solid concrete wall like the barrier simply chose not to exist. A column of absolute black materialized in the center of my apartment, ringed by cascading nightmare energy. A dark aura that bent the light around it like a black hole. Its white ruff of neck fur was the only bright thing in the room. Jolteon reacted first. Raw instinct, zero deliberation. It launched a thunderbolt point blank. Darkrai didn't dodge. It absorbed the lightning, pulling it into its body, and the room went darker. Charmander roared and exhaled a stream of fire that should have been blinding. Darkrai stepped through it. The flame curved around it like water around stone. A single dark void pulse radiated outward. Totodile hit the wall. Jolteon crumpled. Charmander's tail flame guttered to almost nothing. Phantom screamed, a sound like 1,000 gears grinding, and hurled itself directly at Darkrai. One shadow tendril caught it midair and pinned it to the ceiling. I ran to help and was thrown backward by a wave of concentrated nightmare pressure. My vision filled with black static. On the floor, I could see the 6th sphere. It was shaking. The low subsonic pulse I had heard for 2 weeks was getting faster. 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 Lucario stood between me and Darkrai, bleeding from 3 shadow cuts across its chest, eyes still absolutely calm. It looked at me. Then it looked at the sphere, then back at me. Darkrai raised both arms for the final attack. The sphere shattered. The shockwave was silent, but it flattened everything in the room, including Darkrai, with a pressure so total the walls cracked. A roar, like time, being torn open. Dialga descended. Dialga is not a Pokémon that fits inside a room. It materialized at full scale. The ceiling exploded outward, the walls buckled, and the factory district night sky opened up above us. Its steel blue diamond armor caught the city light. The red gem on its chest blazed like a second sun. Where it stepped, time stuttered. Debris frozen mid-fall. Darkrai's shadow tendrils locked in place like photographs. Darkrai adapted. It sank into the floor and rose behind Dialga, launching a dark void that swallowed 3 square meters of space entirely. Dialga's roar bent time around the attack, and the void collapsed on itself. Then the real war began. Lucario, wounds ignored, leapt onto Darkrai's form and locked both hands around its nightmare core, pouring Aura Sphere energy directly into the creature's chest. Darkrai shrieked. First time it had made a sound. Jolton recovered. It launched itself upward and sheathed Lucario's attack in a net of lightning, a combo that split the Darkrai's aura shell wide open. Charizard, fully evolved now, the combat evoking its final form, swept upward on a column of fire and hit Darkrai from above with a flare blitz that lit the entire factory district like a sunrise. Totodile, no longer small, evolved in the fury of battle into Feraligatr, slammed into Darkrai's reformed body with a water pulse that stripped the shadow layer. Phantom, freed from the ceiling, merged its spectral energy with the attack pattern, adding a ghost pulse that pierced what physical elements could not reach. Darkrai staggered, for the first time, retreating. Dialga stood at the center. It inhaled. The roar of time gathered, a sound that pre-existed sound, a vibration that bent space around the factory block. Every gear in every ruin within a mile began to turn. Every stopped clock in the apartment below began to tick. The beam fired. Darkrai was not destroyed, it was removed, sent backward through time so far that it could not find the path back. The nightmare collapsed into nothing. The factory district at 4 a.m. looked like a war had passed through it, which it had. I sat in the ruins of my apartment's top floor, 3 walls standing, no ceiling, stars visible directly above, and watched my family settle around me. Charmander pressed into my left side. Totodile curled at my feet, soaked and grinning. Jolteon sat bolt upright 3 meters away, watching the perimeter, protecting even now. Phantom floated just above my right shoulder, not hiding, present. Lucario sat across from me, eyes closed, finally resting. And Dialga, enormous, ancient, older than this city by millennia, lowered its great head slowly until its armored nose touched the ground beside me. A gesture so small for a creature so vast. I placed my hand on its cold diamond plate. It breathed once, long and slow. The time pulse moved through the ground like a heartbeat. The clocks in the ruined apartment below all clicked to 4:18. Time had agreed to continue. So had we.